Welcome to this episode, The Search for Truth. Is there a single, objective reality? Truth has always been one of the most contested concepts in human thought. Is there such a thing as an absolute truth? Or is truth always relative to culture, perception, and context? Philosophers, scientists, religious leaders, and poets have all grappled with this question, offering wildly different answers. For Plato, truth was eternal and unchanging, existing in the realm of the forms. For Friedrich Nietzsche, truth was a human construction, what he famously called a mobile army of metaphors. For Michel Foucault, truth was entangled with power, shaped by institutions and discourse. And yet, even with these disagreements, one thing is clear: truth matters. Our ability to distinguish truth from falsehood affects how we live, how we govern, and how we relate to one another. Today, in a world of fake news, deep fakes, and contested narratives, truth seems more elusive than ever. But this is not the first time humanity has faced such uncertainty. Every generation has questioned whether it is possible to know reality as it truly is, or whether we only ever encounter it through our limited human filters. In this video, we will explore multiple perspectives: the philosophical search for absolute truth, the subjective dimensions of human experience, the role of religion in declaring divine truth, and the postmodern claim that all truths are socially constructed. Along the way, we'll draw from literature, psychology, and history to see how humans have tried to live in the tension between certainty and doubt. As we proceed, I invite you not only to listen, but to reflect on your own beliefs. Do you hold to an objective truth? Or do you believe truth is a human story we tell to make sense of chaos? Perhaps, like many, you live in the paradox of both. The ancient Greeks gave us some of the first systematic reflections on truth. Plato believed in a reality beyond appearances, a realm of unchanging forms. In his famous allegory of the cave, he describes prisoners chained in darkness, mistaking shadows for reality. Only when one prisoner escapes and sees the sun does he encounter truth itself. For Plato, truth was absolute, eternal, and independent of human opinion. Aristotle, Plato's student, approached truth differently. He defined truth with the principle of correspondence. To say of what is that it is, and of what is not that it is not, is to speak the truth. This view, known as the correspondence theory, still underpins much of scientific inquiry today. Truth corresponds to reality, and our task is to align our statements with the way things are. Other ancient traditions also reflected on truth. In Hindu philosophy, satya means both truth and reality, considered a moral virtue and cosmic principle. In Buddhism, truth is embodied in the Four Noble Truths, which point not to abstract concepts, but to lived realities of suffering and liberation. In early Jewish thought, truth, emet, was linked with God's faithfulness and reliability, something to be trusted rather than merely observed. From the beginning, then, truth was not only intellectual but moral and spiritual. To live truthfully was to live well. But the ancients also knew how difficult this pursuit could be, as appearances so often mislead us. Religion has long claimed authority over truth. In Christianity, Jesus declares, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." John 14:6. Here, truth is not just doctrine, but a person embodied in Christ. To know the truth is to enter into a relationship with the divine. The Islamic tradition also elevates truth. One of the names of God in the Quran is Al-Haq, the truth. This highlights truth as ultimate reality, inseparable from God's being. In Buddhism, truth is expressed through the Dharma, the teaching that reveals the path to enlightenment. These are not competing truths, but different expressions of the conviction that ultimate reality cannot be fabricated. It must be revealed. Such religious perspectives often present truth as transcendent, beyond the shifting sands of human perception. Truth is not invented by us, it is given. This raises both comfort and challenge. Comfort, because truth is stable and secure. Challenge, because it demands humility. We are not the makers of truth, only its seekers or recipients. But religious claims also spark tension. What happens when different communities claim exclusive access to truth? Is truth universal or particular to one tradition? The history of religion includes both profound insights into truth and tragic conflicts over competing versions of it. Still, religious traditions remind us of something vital. The pursuit of truth is not just intellectual, it is existential. To know truth is to orient one's life, values, and relationships in a certain direction. As philosophy evolved, so too did ideas about truth. The Enlightenment celebrated reason and science, but modern thinkers began to question whether truth was truly objective. Søren Kierkegaard, often called the father of existentialism, declared that truth is subjectivity. For him, truth was not just about abstract facts, but about how one lived. A mathematical formula might be objectively true, but it is irrelevant to life unless it shapes existence. Friedrich Nietzsche went further, challenging the very idea of objective truth. He argued that truths are human constructs. Illusions which we have forgotten are illusions. For Nietzsche, what we call truth is often a mask for power, morality, or cultural norms. This radical skepticism shook the foundations of Western thought, forcing later philosophers to wrestle with whether anything stable remained. Meanwhile, literature echoed this shift. Fyodor Dostoevsky's characters often embody conflicting truths, each valid from their own perspective. In modern times, writers like Virginia Woolf and James Joyce experimented with stream of consciousness to reveal the fragmented nature of human perception. This turn towards subjectivity does not mean truth disappears. It means truth is deeply entangled with perspective. In a world of diverse experiences, whose truth counts? Can we ever step outside our own viewpoint to see reality as it really is? These questions bring us closer to contemporary debates. Michel Foucault famously argued that truth and power are inseparable. According to him, every society produces its own regime of truth, systems that define what counts as knowledge, who has the authority to speak it, and how it is enforced. Truth, then, is not simply discovered, but constructed through power relations. We can see this throughout history. In the medieval church, truth was dictated by religious authority, with heresy punished severely. In modern times, governments and media shape truth through propaganda, censorship, or selective framing. Even science, often considered objective, is influenced by funding, politics, and institutional biases. George Orwell's 1984 dramatizes this with chilling clarity. Truth becomes whatever the party declares it to be. When Winston Smith is told that 2 plus 2 equals 5, we see the terrifying potential of power to erase objective reality itself. But Foucault's insight is not only pessimistic, it also empowers resistance. If truth is entangled with power, then challenging power can open new possibilities for truth. Marginalized voices often reveal hidden truths overlooked or suppressed by dominant systems. Thus, the search for truth is not only a philosophical exercise, it is a political act. To ask, what is true, is also to ask, who decides, and who benefits. The 20th century brought with it a radical rethinking of truth through the lens of postmodern philosophy. Thinkers like Michel Foucault, Jacques Derrida, and Jean-François Lyotard challenge the very possibility of objective truth. Instead of seeing truth as a stable foundation, they argued that what we call truth is often tied to power, language, and social structures. Foucault in particular argued that truth is produced within systems of power. What counts as truth in medicine, politics, or history is shaped by institutions that decide what knowledge is legitimate. This means truth is not neutral, but contested. For Derrida, truth is always deferred, hidden within layers of language that can never fully capture reality. His method of deconstruction sought to expose the instability of meaning, showing that texts often undermine themselves. Lyotard, meanwhile, declared the end of grand narratives, those sweeping universal explanations, like progress, science, or religion, that claim to hold ultimate truth. Instead, he emphasized the multiplicity of small local narratives. Postmodernism has been both liberating and troubling. On the one hand, it gives voice to marginalized perspectives by questioning dominant truths imposed by those in power. On the other, it risks sliding into relativism, where no claim can be judged better than another, making it difficult to address issues like justice, science, or human rights. If truth is only a matter of perspective, what prevents falsehoods or harmful ideologies from being accepted as truth? Yet postmodernism also provides a valuable caution. It reminds us to be wary of absolute claims, to notice whose interests are being served, and to recognize that truth is often entangled with culture and history. In our current digital age, where competing truths flood our screens, these insights feel strikingly relevant. The challenge is not to abandon the search for truth, but to navigate it with critical awareness, balancing skepticism with a commitment to discernment. Truth has not only been a concern of philosophy, but also of religion, where it takes on an eternal and transcendent dimension. In Christianity, truth is often personified in the figure of Christ, who declares in the Gospel of John, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Here, truth is not an abstract idea, but a living presence, a divine revelation that guides humanity toward salvation. In Islam, the Quran is described as al-Haq, the truth, revealed to the Prophet Muhammad as a perfect expression of God's will. For Muslims, truth is inseparable from divine guidance, shaping moral life and community. In Hinduism, truth is expressed as satya, one of the cardinal virtues, celebrated in the Rig Veda and exemplified in figures like Mahatma Gandhi, who held that truth is God. For Buddhists, truth takes the form of the Four Noble Truths, a path not to metaphysical certainty, but to liberation from suffering. Across traditions, truth is not something invented, but something discovered or revealed, demanding humility, reverence, and obedience. These religious visions suggest that truth is not merely about facts, but about the ultimate meaning of existence and our relationship with the sacred. The moral force of these traditions reminds us that truth has consequences. It is not just intellectual, but spiritual and ethical. When people encounter sacred truth, they are transformed. It binds communities and offers stability against the chaos of relativism. Yet these traditions also clash, each claiming ultimate authority. This raises the question, can there be multiple absolute truths, or must there be only one? The coexistence of these voices forces us to consider whether truth is singular and exclusive, or whether, as some mystics suggest, all paths point toward the same reality beyond words. Science offers another powerful way of approaching truth, one grounded not in revelation but in observation, testing, and reason. From Galileo to Darwin to Einstein, the scientific enterprise has sought to uncover laws of nature that apply universally. In this sense, science leans toward the objective conception of truth, one that is verifiable, reproducible, and independent of culture or belief. When Newton described the law of gravity, it was not true for England alone, it was true everywhere. But science also acknowledges its limitations. What was once thought true in one era is revised in another. The flat Earth gave way to the round Earth. Newtonian mechanics gave way to relativity. And even now, quantum physics challenges classical understandings of matter and causality. Thus, science does not offer immutable truth, but provisional models that are continuously tested and refined. In this way, truth in science is dynamic, a process, not a final state. This raises deep philosophical questions. Does the changing nature of scientific knowledge mean that ultimate truth is forever beyond our reach? Or does it mean that truth is approximated step by step, like climbing a mountain whose summit we may never see? For many, science inspires humility, reminding us of the vastness of reality compared to our small understanding. Yet it also inspires awe, revealing truths about the universe that expand our imagination and fuel progress. The scientific pursuit suggests that truth is not only about accuracy, but also about curiosity and courage. While science and religion aim at universal truths, each of us also lives with personal truths that arise from our experiences, perspectives, and cultural backgrounds. For example, someone who has experienced injustice may hold as true the conviction that the world is unfair, while another person raised in safety and privilege may see life as fundamentally just. Both views are shaped less by universal laws than by lived experience. This subjective element of truth can be seen in literature and storytelling. Writers like Virginia Woolf, James Baldwin, and Gabriel Garcia Marquez remind us that truth is often embedded in the details of daily life, emotions, and memory. A story may not be factually accurate but can still hold deep truth about the human condition. This is why myths, parables, and novels have such lasting power. They convey truths that go beyond literal events. Subjective truth also plays out in politics and culture, where identity and perspective influence what people accept as true. This can enrich dialogue, allowing us to see from many angles, but it can also create division when each person insists their truth is absolute. Nietzsche famously declared that there are no facts, only interpretations, pushing us to question whether objectivity is ever possible. Yet, subjective truth is not without value. It teaches empathy, as we recognize that each person's truth matters in their lived reality. It also teaches humility, since our perspective is always partial. The challenge is not to dismiss subjective truth, but to integrate it with other forms of truth, balancing personal insight with evidence and shared understanding. In a world of multiple truths, the task becomes not choosing one but learning how they fit together. Truth is not only a philosophical pursuit, but also a political necessity. Democracies depend on the idea that citizens have access to truthful information in order to make informed decisions. Without shared truths, public discourse collapses and democracy becomes vulnerable to manipulation. This is why freedom of the press, open debate, and transparency are seen as essential pillars of democratic society. History provides clear warnings. When regimes distort or monopolize truth, authoritarianism thrives. George Orwell's 1984 describes a world where truth is whatever the party declares it to be, reducing reality to propaganda. Sadly, many societies have experienced versions of this: censorship, state-controlled media, and suppression of dissenting voices. In such conditions, the search for truth becomes an act of resistance. Yet the democratic world is not free of danger. Today, we see how misinformation spreads quickly online, fragmenting societies into echo chambers where each group has its own version of truth. Without agreed upon facts, dialogue becomes nearly impossible. This raises a pressing question. Is democracy sustainable in a post-truth era? The challenge is to rebuild trust, protect institutions of accountability, and encourage citizens to value truth as a common good. Truth in democracy is not just about accuracy, but about responsibility, the willingness of individuals and communities to seek evidence, listen across divides, and hold power accountable. Without truth, freedom loses its foundation. In our digital age, the question of truth has become more urgent than ever. Technology has democratized information, but it has also democratized misinformation. Social media platforms allow billions of people to share their perspectives, but they also create echo chambers and filter bubbles that reinforce biases. Algorithms prioritize engagement, not truth, amplifying sensationalism over careful analysis. This raises questions about authority. Who decides what is true in an age where everyone has a platform? Traditional media once claimed that role, but it too has been accused of bias, omission, or manipulation. Meanwhile, deepfakes, artificial intelligence, and viral disinformation campaigns blur the line between reality and fabrication. Truth itself seems fragile, destabilized by speed and volume. Yet technology also holds potential for advancing truth. Open data projects, fact-checking initiatives, and global collaboration allow for transparency and verification like never before. The internet has exposed corruption, preserved cultural memory, and given voice to the marginalized. In this sense, technology is a double-edged sword. It can illuminate or obscure, empower or mislead. The challenge for us is discernment. Digital literacy, critical thinking, and ethical responsibility must become central virtues if we are to navigate this landscape. As Hannah Arendt warned, when truth is replaced with opinion, the very fabric of reality begins to unravel. Our task is to preserve the conditions where truth can still be found. Literature has always been a companion in the search for truth. While stories are not literal, they often reveal truths more profound than facts alone. Sophocles' Oedipus Rex explores the painful reality that seeking truth can bring suffering, yet avoidance of truth brings destruction. Shakespeare's Hamlet wrestles with the uncertainty of truth in a world filled with deceit and performance. The character's haunting line, "to be or not to be," reflects the existential search for meaning in a fractured reality. Beyond the Western canon, the Arabian Nights demonstrates how stories themselves preserve and transmit cultural truths. Scheherazada's tales not only delay her death, but reveal the power of narrative to transform hearts and minds. Similarly, Dostoevsky's novels expose the moral and psychological truths of human conflict, questioning whether ultimate truth is divine, social, or buried within the self. Literature gives us lenses to confront realities we may resist. It allows us to inhabit lives different from our own, developing empathy and perspective. It also reminds us that truth is not merely discovered, but interpreted, shaped by the act of storytelling itself. In this sense, fiction becomes a mirror to reality, showing us what facts alone cannot capture: the complexity of motives, desires, and fears. The literary pursuit of truth suggests that even if we never reach absolute certainty, the act of seeking through stories enriches our humanity. Truth is not only a matter of logic but also of imagination. The question at the heart of our search is whether truth is ultimately singular or plural. Can there be one objective reality that encompasses all perspectives, or is truth always multiple, fragmented, and relative? Philosophers have long debated this. Plato's vision of eternal forms suggests a single universal truth beyond appearances. By contrast, Nietzsche's perspectivism insists that truth is always filtered through individual viewpoints. Religious traditions often emphasize singular truth: one God, one revelation, one path to salvation. Yet the diversity of these traditions complicates the picture, for they cannot all be exclusively right in their claims. Science also aspires to universality, yet it continually revises its theories, suggesting that truth may be more provisional than absolute. The pluralist view holds that truth may take different forms in different domains: scientific truth, moral truth, personal truth, each valid in its context. The danger lies in collapsing them into one or dismissing them all as meaningless. Perhaps, as the poet Rumi suggests, truth is like an elephant touched by blind men. Each feels a part and insists it is the whole. Only together do they approximate the reality. This image captures both the humility and the hope of the search for truth. Universality may exist, but our grasp of it is always partial, requiring dialogue, openness, and collaboration. The pursuit of universal truth is less about possession and more about communion. Beyond its intellectual appeal, truth has profound ethical significance. If truth disappears, so does accountability. Lies corrode trust, distort relationships, and undermine justice. A society where truth is disregarded becomes one where power alone dictates reality, and morality loses its foundation. As the philosopher Immanuel Kant argued, truth-telling is not just a preference, but a moral duty, for without it, communication itself becomes impossible. We see this in personal relationships. Honesty builds intimacy, while deception shatters it. We see it in politics. Corruption thrives when truth is hidden, while integrity relies on transparency. We see it in history. Acknowledging painful truths, such as injustice, oppression, or violence, is the first step toward healing. Without truth, reconciliation is impossible. Truth also demands courage. It is often uncomfortable, challenging, or dangerous to speak the truth, especially against powerful interests. Yet truth-tellers, from Socrates to Martin Luther King Jr. to Malala Yousafzai, remind us that truth carries transformative power. Their witness shows that truth is not only about facts but about justice, dignity, and freedom. Ultimately, truth is inseparable from love. To love someone is to see them truthfully, without distortion. To love humanity is to seek the truth about its condition. Ethics without truth is hollow. Truth without ethics is cold. Together, they form the foundation of a meaningful life. For those who wish to go deeper into the question of truth, I recommend a selection of resources. Bernard Williams' Truth and Truthfulness examines why truth matters in ethics and public life, blending philosophy with practical concerns. Nietzsche's essay, On Truth and Lies in a Non-Moral Sense, is provocative, challenging the very foundations of truth as a stable category. Plato's Republic remains a classic, especially the allegory of the cave, which illustrates the difficult journey from illusion to reality. Jean-François Lyotard's The Postmodern Condition captures the skepticism of postmodern thought, emphasizing the breakdown of grand narratives. Orwell's 1984 is a haunting literary reminder of how fragile truth can be under systems of power. Alain Badiou's The Ethics of Truth explores truth as an event, something that ruptures ordinary existence and demands fidelity. Together, these books provide a rich spectrum of perspectives. Podcasts also provide accessible and engaging explorations. Philosophize This introduces key thinkers in clear language. The Partially Examined Life takes a conversational approach, balancing rigor with humor. The Ezra Klein Show often features guests exploring truth in politics, science, and culture. For ongoing study, the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy and the Internet. Encyclopedia of Philosophy are excellent, free resources offering scholarly yet approachable entries. Aeon Essays provides contemporary reflections on truth and related themes, bridging philosophy and lived experience. These resources are starting points, not final answers, and they will help you deepen your own exploration. As we conclude, we return to our central question: is there a single objective reality, or are there many truths shaped by perspective? The answer remains elusive. Philosophers, scientists, artists, and believers have offered competing visions, and perhaps no single resolution is possible. Yet what unites them is the recognition that truth matters. Without it, we are adrift. With it, we find direction, even if imperfectly. The pursuit of truth is not only intellectual but existential. It shapes our identities, guides our societies, and inspires our deepest commitments. Even when truth is contested, the act of searching binds us together in dialogue and reflection. The search itself becomes a kind of truth, a recognition that reality exceeds any single perspective. T.S. Eliot once suggested that the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Perhaps truth is less about arrival than about transformation, the way we are changed by the journey of seeking. Whether in philosophy, religion, science, or art, the search for truth draws us into greater humility, courage, and wonder. So let us not be discouraged by uncertainty. Instead, let us embrace curiosity, critical thinking, and compassion as we continue the quest. Truth may be elusive, but the search makes us more fully human,